Hello, Tom Lemecki here with a very special edition of the New Theory podcast. Ralph DiBignara is here today. Now, the reason why this is special is he was on, we're just talking, back in 2019, just before I acquired New Jersey Digest. Shout out to New Jersey Digest. And Ralph has done a lot before then, but Ralph has done a lot after. Ralph, welcome back to the New Theory podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I was just having a conversation about how I met you before I got here, and I think I met you on CBS News first. I think we were both on a segment, and you were in a different office, and so I've known you for a lot of years, and I've kind of seen you do a lot of things before and after too. So it's cool to be back.
And we'll talk about kind of like some ups and downs because we both have them in business and in life. Then on top of it, we met in 2016 because they were doing a feature on New Theory. And you were handling one part of the kind of millennial discussion on your own kind of platform. And then they came to the office and filmed a CBS segment for New Theory. Oh, man, those were the days, 2016.
I know. It went by fast. Too fast.
So, okay. So, you know, I kind of do a lot of different elected type of interviews. And respectfully, I did interview a lot of criminals in the past. A lot of Italian-American criminals, a lot that were from your neighborhood growing up, right? Now, you, and this what always interests me about you and people like you, is you went, the right path, while some of the guys I interviewed went down the wrong path. And we don't celebrate guys like you enough because it's not cool to be legitimate. You know what I mean? It's not cool to be a family guy. It's not cool to be a good person. But to me, it's better to be a good person than a bad person.
I appreciate that.
So give us how kind of grow up in Brooklyn shaped you kind of to make you the man who you are today.
So, I got to give my parents the credit kind of there because my father's an educator. So we lived in one of those neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But he wasn't one of those guys.
Correct.
So I had both sides of it. But they're educators, but, income-wise, being an educator is kind of almost blue-collar, right?
Yep.
So he worked a lot of jobs, and I was on the street mostly kind of hanging out and being around the other guys. So the people who were making money were still the people you looked at like,
that's right.
That's really where I want to be.
Yeah.
I think I got to a point where I was in college, 20 or 21, and I started looking at it, I'm like, this is a dead end.
Yeah.
And I think me as a person, I have to know that there's growth in something.
Correct.
And if I feel like I'm in a place, whether it's criminal or not criminal, that there's no growth there.
Correct.
I got to start to pivot into a different direction. So what really happened for me is like I got to find something else to do that's not this because my father's a teacher. He's telling me I shouldn't do that because he's been doing it for 30 years and he has to work 4 jobs to kind of pay the bills. Yeah. So that's not an option. Staying on the street isn't an option, and correct. I don't know that that's me. Yeah. So what kind of comes next? So I always tell people I think between the ages of like 20 and 22 were the most stressful years of my life because I had no idea what the hell I was going to do.
Interesting.
And I kind of found mortgages and real estate by accident, really by accident.
Yeah.
And then when I got there, I realized that I didn't do good in school, but I realized by not doing good in school, it didn't affect my life at this point. Now, so as long as I worked hard and kind of pushed towards something, like I saw my father do more than anybody else, that it would work. And I think that's how I ended up going down this path. But it was really just like any other job. I was looking for a better opportunity than I saw in front of me. And I think that's why I went. So I'd like to give you the answers like I had this inside feeling I was a better person. The truth of the matter is I think I just saw that something else is better as far as a growth pattern than I was. So I did one a different way.
Love it. And then what neighborhood of Brooklyn again?
I grew up in Diker Heights.
So Diker Heights. Okay. So Diker Heights, I used to hang out in Diker Park from about 90 to 90. No, I'm sorry. I'm getting not that old. I want to say from 94 to 96. Yep. So I've liked Diker Heights. Great. They're actually trying to make that a little Italy zone now because it's one of the largest areas outside of Italy in the U.S. that still has Italian speaking and Italians that are still there. So let me ask you this now. Of your contemporaries, right, let's call it 18-year-old Ralph, 17-year-old Ralph, pick 5 to 8 guys. Did they all kind of end up okay? Maybe blue-collar jobs, successful in life, or a few street guys. Like, how did your kind of network end up? So I'm interested to hear about that.
I would say 50-50.
Good.
Yeah, 50-50. Yeah, I would say that some guys are still kind of knocking around that, that there's still visits for and that kind of stuff, and there's that stuff still. And there's guys that, went the other way completely. And they, some of them just weren't built for that life. And some of them saw the same things I saw and kind of went a different way. But I would say 50-50.
Now, how do you draw parallels? Because to me, when I see somebody go the wrong way or go the right way, and it's a shame sometimes guys that went the wrong way, they are somewhat successful in that life. They obviously end up dead or in prison, but they have a nice run. And you say to yourself, wait a second, that person could have been successful if they went down the right path. Yeah. What commonalities did you see between your successful friends on the good side and kind of the street guys that had brains and maybe did a little better than others. But you're like, wait a second, these are the common traits that I see.
Yeah, I think mostly the guys that I had see success on the criminal side more than anything was that guys that found legitimate businesses that could get into. Now, whether they could help themselves from scamming in those businesses was a different story, but they found something that there was something if they put enough time and money behind, even if it was illegal money, that they could find consistency. So same thing as anything else. I think the guys that have found success found something they could consistently put work and money behind that they was, and they could have done that in any industry or without the illegal money backing them.
Exactly.
But they just did it that way because that's what they knew. So, the traits of success for me are the same on both sides. They really are. It's just the problem with that side is that once you're there, it's hard to leave.
Correct.
So even when they get to the point where they don't want to be in, and I've seen this throughout, not just my background, through other backgrounds too, where they're like guys who became famous musicians but were in a gang before that. They always have to be part of that gang culture. They're not going anywhere.
Good point.
I think it's the same traits as far as just getting in something that you're willing to consistently work at every single day. Yeah. And those are the people that found success.
And isn't it crazy because, and I'm going to say this in a way that doesn't sound like bad, but it's easier for you to make money, you and me to make money now. It's not easy, but it's easier. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Because we built equity in our life where we created this network of other people. So I think, 90% of the stuff I can do now is because of my network, not because of me, because I've kept a good reputation and I have people around me. So when people come to me, they'll get access to other people. When you're in that life, the people you in your network keep disappearing.
Correct.
So I think that's the problem. It's like, all right, I'm starting over again. I'm starting over again. I'm following this guy, but now this guy's gone, so now I'm starting over again. Yeah. And you know as well as I do, when they go away, nobody's looking for them anymore. Nope. It's like you disappeared off the map. So that's part of the problem. I think that they have to keep recreating themselves. That's right. Whereas me and you don't.
You build.
You just build. Yeah.
And that's a good point because, and I wasn't trying to say to be like pompous. What I mean is, I look at it like if I needed $25,000 in 30 days, I have to work for it, but I have the ability to do that, right? Yeah. And I kind of feel like we're here. Those guys were here. There's this big hump. And if they were here, like they would be like, oh shit, you know what? This is not as hard as I thought. And I'm not risking my life. I could have a nice wife. I could have good kids and whatever that is. So, okay. So now let's go by this stepping stone building. We'll get into your mortgage and your success. But I want people to watch this because I think you're probably the most relatable guest that I had and have that has been the Brooklyn guy, that kind of stuff, but made it, right? And I want you to give the first step to somebody watching who maybe made the wrong decision but wants to do the right thing.
Yeah, I think, and I see this all the time, and I'm sure, and you definitely see it all the time. There's people who haven't started yet or have a bad background, especially in this day and age. Correct. It's I don't know if it's celebrated, but it's accepted.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Who have come out or started much later than me and got past me because they started putting their skills towards something else and they had something attracted to it. So I think that first of all, it's definitely not too late. Listen, I'm in a business right now, which is mortgages and real estate. That sucks, right? It's not a good business right now. Yep. So, it's another, like I got to recreate myself in different ways to keep making money. So it's just the same thing for somebody like that. It's just, am I willing to put the work in to be uncomfortable for a little while to go that way? So I think that's the biggest thing is like, how uncomfortable am I willing to get to go a different route? And when you hear these guys, and I've heard your podcast a bunch and people you've had on, when they hear these guys start to go a million miles an hour in a different direction, they almost always find some sort of success, some level of success. So I think how uncomfortable you want to be, and what you probably witnessed more than me, and you've seen it, is that I think you get to an age where you don't want the stress and the paranoia of what that brings in. Like,
that's right.
You and I can handle. I would say we have less tolerance for that stuff now than we did before.
Correct.
So then what do you have a tolerance for? So have a tolerance for being uncomfortable, trying something new, meeting new people. Because the stuff that I learned, this is where I worry about my kids. Yeah. Right. The stuff that I learned being in the street and that kind of stuff are really, really good life skills. Yeah. In a lot of ways. Yeah. Without the violence and all the other stuff, they're really good life skills. Correct. So now you have all those skills. Well, use them in a different direction. I guarantee it's going to work at something.
Correct. Now, give me kind of like maybe some of the core principles, because again, growing up in Dyker Heights, there's a ton of positives and a ton of successful people from that way. We always talk about kind of like the bad guys, but there's a ton of successful people from that way. Give me some of your core guiding principles that you can share. So like you said, number one, kind of pick your path. do your thing, work hard, keep your nose clean. That's kind of the foundational. But what are some core principles that you don't compromise on that somebody could watch and say, hey, you know what? If I adopt these principles, I might have the same success.
Reputation. Yeah. So I'll compromise everything except something that's going to compromise your reputation. Yeah. So I'll give up money, I'll give up time, I'll give up things like that. But I'm not going to ever do something for a quick buck or a quick relationship that's going to, somebody's going to be able to talk about me afterwards. Like, Ralph screwed me on this or Ralph beat me on this. So I think that's one more than anything is my reputation.
Good point.
And, second is who my friends are. Yeah. Like the people I keep around me more than anything. I want to have people around me that we're not wasting each other's time more than anything, that there's a value in time and we can help each other. Correct. Not that people aren't sucking life off of me and I'm not getting anything out of the situation. So I think more than anything, those are two core principles that I used then, I definitely use now. I think I'll use forever. And listen, there are very few loyal people in life anymore. Yeah. And that could be a detriment sometimes because you run into situations you're like, I'm this person who's loyal almost to a fault in some situation, but people don't show you that respect back. Yeah. That's just something I'm going to have to accept. Yeah. That's not going to be that way. But I also feel like that helps reputation-wise for me because I was loyal in the situation, you weren't. So if you want to go tell the story, you can't tell that side of the story about me. So I think it helps in some ways.
Good point. Okay, so you were killing it, and then the mortgage crisis came. You fell on your ass like many people did. You rebounded, but then over the years you kind of pivoted a little bit. So give me kind of your core business, mortgages, that kind of stuff. And then I want to hear about the speaking and then the Airbnb.
Sure. Yeah. So the mortgage business will always be the foundation of what I do, and everything kind of centers around real estate. Yeah. My own real estate portfolio is big enough now that it's its own business. Yeah. And that is 50% Airbnb and 50% long-term rentals. Yeah. I have all the media stuff I still do. So I have. The television show we just did, it was on all the streaming networks. That's awesome. I don't know that I'm generating a ton of money from that, but it paid the bill for the show. Yeah, right? Yeah. So, and you understand that too, I'm sure.
Yeah, too much.
And that's definitely something I do. What I've gotten involved more recently in is I'm at the cusp of kind of investing in sports training and fitness, sports training and fitness companies. Nice. And that's always just been part of my life. But I'm the type of person, my son's 10, my daughter's 8. They both play sports. Yeah. And I love being there for the sports, but I don't want to be the sports dad that's just the sports dad. So now I'm figuring out how to build businesses around that.
You can't do anything small.
I can't.
You can't just show up, drink beer, and yell. You actually got to find a way to make money on it.
So that's kind of where I am right now. So I'm working on 2 separate businesses that are going to be in that world because I want to spend as much time with them as possible, but at the same time, I don't want to feel like I'm not contributing to our overall growth. So that's next.
I love it. All right. So foundationally, you have your mortgage company. What if somebody wants to get into mortgages, sell mortgages? I have a good friend of mine, Travis. Shout out to Travis. I know you're in this space. If somebody wants to sell mortgages, I know it's a rough time to probably get in, but how can somebody get started in that?
So, like anything else, if you went to any mortgage company right now and say, hey, I want a job, it may be hard to get a job. So, everybody's got to be licensed. You go down the licensing path. Yeah. But this is the most important thing I'd give you. Once you get past all that, I get licensed, I got somebody that's willing to give me a job, all that stuff. I have 2 really, really young guys in my organization who are still doing a lot of business even in bad markets. So I went to go sit with them over the last couple of months and I said, walk me through your day. The process they use now is the same process I used in 2002, which is the more applications they get, the more time they put on task as far as building network, getting people to give them the information, the more business they do. So it's still a numbers game. Yeah. To do a certain amount of business, I have to be willing to put a certain amount of time. And I explain this to people all the time. When I first started the business, I had a note in front of my desk that said, I have to take 10 applications a day if I want to close 20 loans a month. To close 20 loans a month gets me this volume. That gets me this much money.
20 month march, you call it.
Yeah. So it's still completely a numbers game.
Correct. And they're willing to put the hustle.
It's still that. So it's not. So everybody's like technology, this technology, that, and the AI and the technology is replacing a lot of the operations portion of it. Yeah. But it can't replace the guys who have a network that can get business from their network. So you got to be willing. If you're willing to put that work in, the business is still the same.
Did you hear? It's recently announced there's going to be an AI beauty pageant. Where they actually going to put together Miss World AI. So I don't know who puts it together. I don't know how they win. I don't know how they put a crown on a fictitious person. But AI is doing some cool stuff. We could probably do another whole episode on AI and that. All right. So the mortgage part I get. Now, I always followed you, always watch your stuff. Shout out to Disruptors Network. You got to check it out. Great show. Yeah, I know. It's tricky because you and I are kind of media guys, right? And I don't I don't use it as a funnel as much. I got to be honest with you. I like people come to me to like, "Are you making money in the podcast?" I'm kind of like, yes or no. You know, like I don't make money in the podcast, but we get a lot of after work from it. You know what I mean?
And you could.
And you could. You really could if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I got offers to be paid to be on the show. Some I accepted. But that's a whole nother discussion. So I get the media portion. So now let's go to Airbnbs because that's kind of been a roller coaster and you've done very well with it. And one thing I like about you on that thread is when you get jammed up, you don't hide it. I've seen you like in flooded basements, like fucking clogged toilets, whatever.
A lot. Yeah.
So give me kind of Airbnb, how it was, and then how is it today, and if somebody wants to get into that space.
Yeah. So when I first really started buying was like 18, 19.
Okay.
So it was really before all these huge hospitality companies got in. Now that's your competition, right? So it's not just the person down the block. If you're going to do it on any large level, you're dealing with hospitality companies. You have
What's a hospitality company? They'll buy a whole bunch of Airbnb.
Yeah, like they'll rate. Like there's a company called Wander. They raised like $30 million. They bought. I think they bought 8 or 9 properties in prime locations like Aspen, the Hamptons, and that becomes your competition because now they start buying up everything else. So it's a tougher market and there's less travel. You know what's funny? Travel's up.
Yeah.
If you look at all the numbers, travel is up.
Yeah.
But I will tell you the Airbnb business, I don't care what anybody tells you, and it's down.
Yeah.
It's down in the last 2 years. It was way up and now it's kind of down. So where I'm looking at it is now is like, all right, how do I just keep this going long enough for more people to disappear? And then I go to eat up market share again when interest rates drop and it's advantageous to buy again. How do I go eat up market share again? So right now I'm just in maintain mode. Yeah. But I also learned a lot over the time. Like, you know, you want to be in vacation areas, in my opinion, because they're the most recession-proof areas.
Correct.
People are going to still, if they go to one place every single year, they're going to save every year to get to that place. They'll figure it out. Correct. Or if they get it on their credit cards or wherever they get there,
it's not discretionary per se.
No. So you want to be in vacation areas. You want to be in areas that you can compete at whatever your level is. Like I'm in areas that I have a beachfront property, and then another area where I'm not beachfront, but it's a beach area. But I have a house that can compete in the segment that I'm in. So you want to look at what your competition is, and then continue to, like, I'll give you an example. I have a house that's in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. It's right outside of Jacksonville. Yeah, it's a beachfront property, but a lot of Airbnbs popped up in the last 3 years. Yeah. I was like, what do I do to change the prop? You have to keep adding stuff. I added a putting green in the backyard. Oh, yeah. It's by golf course. I added a putting green. That I was able to raise my price $100 a night, and I increased my bookings. But you have to. It's an everyday.
It's an everyday thing.
Yeah, if the property's not booking, it's mostly because your price is too high.
All right, so I'm assuming that most, if not all, your Airbnbs are all bought. You're not doing rental arbitrage, right?
No, everything's bought. Okay. Yeah, people do that. I don't do that, but people do that. Everything's bought for me.
I don't make a lot of declarative statements. I recommend staying away from rental arbitrage because number one, maybe the association may change rules. Yeah. They may change the rent. A lot of stuff can happen. Sure. There might be a fine print that you missed. New York City, they kick you out. Yep. So I don't like a rental arbitrage. So when you go to invest in an Airbnb property, we're going to get very specific, guys, in this. So if you're interested, great. If not, fast forward. But so the accepted cap rate, right? The percentage of income based off of whatever.
Good question.
Like the cap rate should be higher off of Airbnb purchase than it should be off a regular rental, correct?
Yeah, and the reason I want it to be that way is because it's more of a risk, right? Yeah. There's a big vacancy risk on Airbnbs. Like if anything happens, I'm going to be empty. So I want to make sure when I'm looking at an overall picture, some places are going to be seasonal, some places aren't. But I'm going to take a very conservative number, and I don't use cap rate necessarily for Airbnb. I'll use what I want to make on my money. I want to make at least 10% return, between 10 and 15% return on my investment. Yeah. So if I put $100,000 in, I need to make $10,000.
Do you count appreciation for that, or is appreciation a bonus?
I don't count appreciation for that because what I really want to do is I want to have my initial investment back in 5 to 7 years.
Got it. So your money's always working for you, and the appreciation's a bonus. Correct. But you probably killed it on appreciation.
I did because of when I bought. So I bought at lower interest rates, and I bought in a market where the values are way up. But if I bought now, depending on the area, we're in New Jersey today, but New Jersey, I can tell you, for anybody that's listening to New Jersey, is different than almost every other state in the country right now, as far as because there's no houses for sale here, so everything is bidding wars.
No sales and a high percent.
If you look at the map, New Jersey was minus 4% last year on homes that came to market, and every other market was up.
That's crazy.
So it's kind of crazy, right? But in every other market, it's a normal market. So you just have to. That's what I look at it as though I'm trying to get my money back within 5 to 7 years, and I want to earn 10 to 15% on that money within that 5 to 7 years.
To get back that.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you have your game plan. You buy some properties, 5 to 7, and then when do you? So if somebody watching, 1 unit, 3 units, when do you need a management company? When do you need kind of a handyman? Because believe it or not, I never got in that space, not because it wasn't wasn't worth it. I just don't know how to fix
pain in the
anything,
ass,
you know.
yeah.
And believe it or not, as much as like I got a guy for this, I got a guy for that. I don't have a guy in Florida, so I got to go retail, right?
Yep.
Handyman's $100 an hour,
Sure.
So and at least, so you know, when you get a management company involved, and then how do you negotiate with the management company to make sure you're still profitable?
Yeah, so the management companies that are in that business, there's a couple of major ones, Vacasa being one of them.
Okay.
They'll negotiate, but
Yeah.
they're going to want between 12 and 18%.
Collections?
Yeah, of the rent that comes
the
in every
gross.
month. And they'll handle everything. You'll never hear anything.
Got it.
But they'll do everything. I still manage it in house.
Okay.
So I have somebody on staff that handles, and I had 15 at some point. I think I'm down to 12 that are on the platform.
Got it.
But I have one guy that handles maintenance.
Yeah.
So he handles maintenance for every property.
So somebody calls, he'll find somebody local dispatch.
He's got a local guy to dispatch it to.
Got it.
And then I have one person that handles all the accounting, and my wife helps me with bookings. But like that's kind of my. And I could do all the accounting myself. I'm just busy with the other.
I got to
business.
do other stuff. Yeah.
Yes. So bookings are very, very important, and communication with the people is like the most important thing, because no matter what, inevitably they're going to show up at the house and something's not going to be working.
Correct.
It doesn't matter how put together the house is.
Yeah.
And then your handyman, you need handyman who can get there same day.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're paying for emergency services.
That's right.
And then you need
point.
good cleaning people who are going to go in the house and say, my cleaning people take pictures when they get there.
Yeah.
They take pictures when they leave.
Yeah.
So if somebody gets in and say, hey, this was broken when I got here. It's
Yeah.
like, well, I have pictures.
Correct.
It wasn't broken.
You
so
have to be there.
good cleaning people. And you're going to go through those people.
Yeah.
Like we have cleaning people we've had for 2 years, and all of a sudden we got complaints that the house was dirty twice. So then you got to really constantly be on top of that. But if you have a good handyman, you have a good cleaning person. But I would say anything over probably 3 properties.
Got it.
If you don't have a system, you're going to need help.
Yeah.
Definitely. You need a management company for help. And you may be able to find somebody local. I found that the local vacation companies that manage it sometimes aren't so great, because a lot of those areas of vacation areas for a million different years, and they've been managing properties forever, and nothing's a big deal to them.
Yeah.
They're almost numb to it, right?
Well, that, and if they're taking, let's say 12 to 8, let's say call it 15%, right? They're incentivized to minimize the expenses on fixing everything.
For sure.
So you're always going to hire probably the poorest quality people. Therefore, you're going to get a lot of complaints.
It's a very good point. Yes.
Yeah, because I'm okay with giving up 15%, but no headaches.
Correct.
But
I don't want to hear from
15%
you.
and headaches, then there's a problem.
It's a pain in the ass. Yeah.
All right. So you kind of so before we go on to the regular rentals, Airbnb businesses seemed like it was hot for a minute. All the millennials got in, guys with the laptops. I'm sitting in Dubai, I got 20 units. But it kind of fizzled in some areas, and kind of the bubble burst a little bit. Give us kind of what happened there.
So it just got oversaturated.
Yeah.
It got completely oversaturated. You had too many people who weren't doing, and then, like I found an area where it's in Ocala, Florida. I bought 3 properties because it made sense at the time.
Yeah.
All in the same area, that within blocks of each other. It was crushing it. All of a sudden, that market, things changed. Too many properties came in. The market almost dried up overnight.
Wow.
So I sold 1. I kept 2, but it was time to sell. But it got too saturated with major corporations coming in. They had big money. They had PE money behind them. They were buying properties.
Blackstone and stuff,
Yeah, so that became the biggest issue. So now, like, a lot of the guys have moved on to midterm rentals.
Got it.
And a midterm rental is essentially anything that's over 30 days.
Got it.
So, like, kind of between 2 weeks and over 30 days is a
Got
midterm
it.
rental.
Got it.
And the reason people are getting into that is because there's less hospitality companies. There's less regulation still.
Yeah.
You can really disguise a lot of those properties as long-term rentals.
Also might be corporate too. Corporate might foot the bill for that, right?
Yeah, you have relocation companies. You have corporations. You have that stuff. So, but I really believe if you're going to do midterm, you have to do short-term. It's got to be both, because I don't think there's enough of midterm to
Correct.
do. So I don't think you become, I'm a midterm rental specialist. You won't hear that. But if you do both,
you have a chance.
it's a good pivot. Yeah.
Now, do you still do regular traditional rentals, or you got out of that? You did.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm 50-50.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, I'm still 50-50. So I would say, it's funny because during 19 to 22, Airbnb, I was like Airbnb.
Yeah.
Right now, the long-term rentals are great because inflation is up,
Yeah.
rental costs are up. It's nice to have that consistent check every single month where I got to work off the properties. So there's pros and cons to both sides, but long-term rentals are actually better right now than short-term rentals. So I have both.
So it's tricky because on one end, diversification, just like you diversified, saved me, because when the P came, the pandemic, I can't say because I don't get demonetized. I want people actually to hear, Ralph. What happened was I got crushed. I bought Digest, and all my advertising revenue just overnight gone.
Yeah.
And I just bought it 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I was a 6-figure purchase, still on the hook for the loan because I had enough cash, a lot of cash at the time. So got overnight gone right now. But I had my agency, which, believe it or not, we were heavier in the plastic surgery space. So that kind of shot up. That kind of shot up. And because people were home, They're looking at themselves in Zoom. I look gross. And they had time to recover. So that kind of shot up.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of conflicted where on one end, diversification saved my ass just like it's helped you out. But on the other end, if you look at like the Forbes 400, you never hear like, well, I did Amazon, but I also did, pet stores. It's like, so you need the singular focus. So I struggle between, do I go singular focus all in, but might go broke?
Yeah.
Or do I diversify because I'm 48 and got a family and I'll get wealthy, but it'll take a while? Give me how you balance that out and what's your suggestion to people.
I had this conversation with this wealth manager, like I think this is like 3 years ago, and the height of it being great. It was like you're too over leveraged, you have too much real estate and that other thing, and and it got into my head. I was like, he's right. I got to diversify here, I got to diversify there, and when the market starts to recede, right? Yeah. Like you start to see like everything comes to the light, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm over leveraged, but I understand the ins and outs of this business,
right.
and I can see things coming.
Correct.
With you,
Correct.
I have no idea what's coming because it's
right.
not my world.
That's
so.
Right.
I'm sure there's probably an argument for both, but
Yeah.
I know that no matter what I do in my business, I can make a certain amount of money every single year. In my bad years, it looks like this. In my good years, it looks like this. And I can manage based off of that.
Correct.
So I think there's something to be said for both, but I tend to think I'd like to stay in the field that I'm an expert at, that I've made money at before, because I think I could do better there than going someplace else.
The other part is the wealth manager's like, oh, by the way, but if you give me a check, I'll invest it for you and I get a percentage. So, so there's their incentive on that. Yeah.
And I even talked to Grant Cardone's people during that time, and one of his head sales guys, I was talking to him, he's like, if you give us, I think they were looking for a $250,000 investment at the time. They give us $250,000, we'll guarantee you between 8 and 12%. And I was like, well, I can make more than that on myself. Correct. Yeah, but you don't have to worry about it with us. I'm like, I'll do the work and make 15%. You know what I mean? Like, I'm good with that.
That was for Cardone Capital, right?
Correct, exactly.
So, all right, so I'm mixed on it. So I had Jared Glenn on a while ago, and this was an audio. And Grant jumped on the podcast, and I'll be the first to admit, like, I love Grant Cardone. I love his stuff. I was fanboying when he was on. I almost shit when he was on. Literally shit when he was on. However, Cardone Capital, I just look at it like this, right? You have basically it's a syndication, obviously. Mm-hmm. Another kind of REIT, if you will, real estate investment trust. And he's just taking a little bit of a bigger cut than the other guy because he's Grant. Now, I don't have a problem with that.
No, I agree.
But just say it.
Yeah, just come out and say it.
Right?
I think
so like, hey, I'm buying this 700-unit place in Houston. I'm Grant Cardone, and I got money. I'm going to get a little better deal on it, so it'll be kind of net neutral for you. If they kind of had that approach, I would do that. Then the other thing is, there's a lot of guys that are, and I get this clickbait but a lot of guys are really ripping apart his program, and some of them I kind of like that do that.
And I see a lot of that now.
Yeah,
especially on YouTube.
Yeah,
yeah.
So you know it is, and yeah, I don't want to say anything bad because I don't want to get sued, and I like Grant, and I do think Cardone Capital's, but what is like 18% IRR? They're
I mean, listen,
like
I think
promising or something.
I think it's 50-50. I think you're right on both sides.
I
think both people are right. I think I think if he was just honest about what he did all the time, people would still follow him.
Correct.
But in his brain probably is that if I could be a little bit more shock and awe and say I'm doing this, and that, and I'm for the people, then it's I can get more people to attract to me. But I think he's like every other guy who raises money to do that, if I'm being honest with you.
Correct.
He's the same.
Yeah.
He's just got a bigger name now.
Yeah.
He's got a conference that everybody flocks to that's in real estate. I think he's just a bigger name now. So you're right. He should get more money just for being Grant.
Yeah.
But I think
just not my money.
I agree. But when you're not transparent about that, that's when people can poke holes in you.
How do you, so I see him, I see some other people. How do they publish, hey, we promised like 18%? You know, when they say IRR, it's, what is it, investment return?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's a basically guaranteed return. How do they put that in writing?
They really can't. Like, this is the projected return on investment.
Got it.
This is a really good one. They should pay me at this point how much I mentioned them. But Fundrise is a good crowdfunding real estate.
I heard about that.
And I've been putting money in there for like, I don't know, probably 7 years. And you can put $5 in or $500,000 in. And I put money in monthly. Yeah. And I look, they say, hey, we're going to be between 10 and 15% return on the money. Some years it's 7, some years it's 12.
I'm okay with that,
and I'm fine with that as long as there's something there and I can see what it is.
Yeah.
They can't really nobody can guarantee, because you can't, like, this is really good, and I did a video about this yesterday. Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of Chase, and he's essentially it, right? He's the biggest financial guy in the whole entire world at this point. Chase is the biggest bank by a lot. Yeah. He came out there to say, he's like, I have no idea where interest rates are going. They could be 2%, they could be 8%. I have no idea where it's going. Yeah. So how are there so many gurus predicting where the rates are going?
Correct.
If he doesn't know, then nobody knows.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest problem we're facing right now, right? Like, I think that you can't guarantee anything. I think that if I was going to buy a property, I would buy a property based off what interest rates were today, and I expect that to be like that for 20 years. Now, if it's not, then great.
Yeah.
But if it's a good investment today, then forget about what's going on in the future, because you're gonna real estate. You're always going to naturally gain equity. It's going to appreciate. You said it already. At some point, and I have a really good property. It's a really good example of that. I have a property I bought in 2005, right before the crash.
Yeah.
That was pre-construction. It was in Florida. I bought it for $220. By the end of the crash, it wasn't finished yet, so I couldn't get out of it.
Yeah.
It was worth $70,
Yikes.
and I couldn't sell it because I couldn't get it short sold, because I had to go late on my mortgages to get it short sold, and I had a mortgage license, and I had the financial perspective, so I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So I kept it, I rented it, and I lost money on it for years. I just listed it for $350.
Oh, God bless.
Okay. But it took me 20 years.
Correct,
So I wouldn't call it a good investment. But I outran all my stupidity.
Correct.
In that matter.
Did you ever? He was in your space, but he committed fraud. Matt Cox.
So I've listened to him a bunch.
I was on his show.
Were you really?
Yeah, I'll connect you with him. He's an interesting guy.
Yeah, I actually listened to. He was on some podcast.
Yeah.
And then I listened to his show, and then I ended up listening to his book.
That must have resonated because you were in that space.
Crazy. But that's another guy, right? We just had this conversation.
Yeah.
If he would have just done what he was doing,
Yep.
like legally, he would have still made the same amount of money.
So we had. You go to Tampa much?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's in Tampa. So we go down. We had dinner at Burn. I took him out the night before. My wife and his wife, Jess. Shout out to Jess. And we had dinner at Burns. Doesn't drink and doesn't, just kind of like a very like matter of fact guy. And it's interesting because he kind of plays dumb, but he's really smart. And
I can tell that, yeah.
And he was kind of going through, like, he literally named like each house after the names of Reservoir Dogs, like one with Mr. Pink, George Pink, and Sarah Red or whatever it was. And he was like so egregious about it. And one of the stories was he dressed up like Salvation Army guy, the pin and everything, Salvation Army guy, and he would come and he'd pay you $20.
Okay.
Pay you $20.
Okay.
I don't know why they'd pay you for your information, and they would basically just take your shit and take loans out on it.
So he was stealing your identity.
He just committed egregious fraud.
And like if you ask me, hey, you have to do this to save your life right now to go do that, I don't think I'd be able to do that. Like, he had a skill that people were able to do that I couldn't do.
Well, that's what I was asking Matt. I said, he's going to come up and he's definitely should get on. He's a big podcast.
Yeah.
200,000.
I would love to.
He's a great guy. But like so he was like, I think he had 12 employees at his firm.
Okay.
So if you had a 12 firm brokerage and you're just doing normal business, you would do well to begin with,
especially
but it
in that
wasn't
time frame. He would have crushed it. Yeah, he would have completely crushed it. Because I think when I listened to the book, he was in even before I was. He was in the late 90s. So he really could have rolled the wave.
Super, yeah.
So
and back then, we could factor
it was
in all
easy.
that.
Yeah, he just went the other way.
That's too funny, but shout out to Matt. So, all right. So, to kind of round this out, we're going to have you back on, Ralph. We'd love to, because there's a lot more to talk about. But you got to do some speaking, some consulting. Give us kind of that part of the business, but also what maybe you offer if somebody wants to sign up.
Yeah. I have Airbnb courses that I have up still. That if you're looking to go do that, you can go to ralphdbugnow.com. Kind of everything's at.
Yeah.
I just wrote a book. It was a Wall Street Journal bestseller. And that was kind of just about my life in this business.
Yeah.
But I'm out there speaking. I don't have any dates that I can give you right now. I do, but I don't remember the dates right now. So
how was your event with Brad Lee? I was going to come to that one. I just got busy.
It was good. It's funny about that guy because him and Grant.
He's not easy to get.
No. So I had built one of my courses out on his platform, which is Lightspeed.
Yeah.
Lightspeed out.
Yeah.
So Lightspeed.
Yeah.
So I built. So it's funny because I had a friend put me on the phone with him one day. I didn't know it was him. And he's like, "Hey, I got Brad on the phone."
Did he have you on his show yet?
I was supposed to go out there twice.
Yeah.
And he wants you to come out.
Yeah, you have to go out.
Yeah. So it's the problem, but. He's another guy who's very polarizing. You either like him or you hate him. But when he spoke on stage, and I had really good speakers that day, he had the best.
Oh,
response.
he was a big draw. Yeah.
He had a really good. People really loved to hear him speak.
I wanna go on his show. I heard the Lightspeed is good. And my problem is I'll probably buy it but not need it.
Well, you've done all the stuff on your own.
Well, that's I probably could use it.
Yeah.
But I like Brad dropping bombs. You know Tony Delgado, right? He was on there. A few other people were on there. That's what I like about him. He'll have like PBD on or like a big banger.
Yeah.
But he'll have like regular guys like us on, which is pretty cool. And then the Disruptive podcast is still going too, right?
Yeah. I just went through another like 6 or 7 episodes that we just put out. I put it out around the TV season it's on YouTube now, but it was on all the streaming platforms. It was on Roku. And then I had every little guest on there. I had Charlie Villanueva, who was an NBA player, with the Gronkowski brothers. So I had a bunch of good guys on there, so I'm still doing it.
Nice. And what give us kind of, because we talked about a lot of the good stuff. What are some of, okay, because again, not everybody watching is doing well, right?
Yeah.
And not everybody watching is doing poorly. But I always like try to reach the people who are maybe going through something real time. So, maybe give us an example of how you had a major challenge. You really thought you were like done for. What did you do and how did you overcome it?
I think I'm in the middle of something like that right now, right? I'm in the mortgage business, right? The mortgage business is changing, and there's not like it's shrinking to the point where I feel like there's only going to be major companies left and brokers. That's it, like small brokers and major companies. So AI is replacing a lot of that stuff. So, for me, I have to change how I operate.
Correct.
Because I have to go towards places because. Good salespeople at this point can go directly to the source. Yeah. So what the hell do they need me for, right? So it's like, so it's a matter of kind of trying to create value out that, which, listen, I'm in the middle of doing. Like, it's an ongoing process because it was easy for a while. And I think, during those times in 19 and 22, and I'm not going to say the word either, we all kind of got comfortable doing stuff on Zoom. Yeah. I was in one place. I was in my office every single day, but I was in one place every single day. And when we came out of that, we were too comfortable. Yeah. And you lost culture in offices. Yeah. You lost the connection to the people. And I think over the last 18 months, I've been on a tour to try to get a lot of that back. And it's not
I'm
easy.
so conflicted because I got rid of that office that we had in 16. I got rid of it in 17. A little bit by force. That's how New Theory podcast started, where I launched New Theory. It was post kind of $50 million buyout for Elite Daily.
That's crazy. So, it's awesome.
Yeah, and then what happened was when we launched it, the worst thing that could happen was I had an article go viral. It was called "Why Millennials Don't Go to Nightclubs." Okay. Because of Tinder, they're going to lay it on Tinder. Yeah. They'd rather go to hookah bars, whatever it was.
Anything they can do, you're right. They don't have to go to nightclubs anymore.
So first month, I get 330,000 page views. Visitors, about 1 million page views. And I'm like, wow, I have the next Elite Daily. And again, next month, and I was crushing it. Not really monetize it, just focusing on growth. Yeah. Like within 3 months, I had somebody evaluate the site and it was worth like $400K, just based off of all the valuation.
It's like I'm doing this again.
Correct. Yeah. So I'm like, wow, I got the Midas touch. So I brought in she wasn't even there at the office to film. Another red flag. I hired a editor part-time because I couldn't afford her full-time. And the first week she was supposed to sign on, she's like, I'm going away that week for vacation, but could I have a sign-on? I'm like, well, have you already put in the payroll to work that week? She goes, well, I guess that's my sign-on. So red flag number one. Number two, I had an article on The Hook. You could appreciate this one. I had an article on The Hook for Forbes back in the day. Contributors and little. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Randall Lane, if you're watching. He's a Jersey guy too. At least, they're in Forbes in Jersey City. And I had on The Hook a written article that is New Theory going to be the next Elite Daily? Okay. And then the contributors pushing me, let's say end of April, pushing me, Tom, I got to get this printed, I'm like, the new editor, I'm like, hey, I really need your quote for this, and then I'll put it on because I really felt it was important for her to be included. Yeah. She goes away, doesn't give me the quote. He gets fired from the contributor. He walks away with my $2,500, and I finally get the article up on the HuffPo, and then HuffPo comes along. They got rid of all their contributors, and the article is now gone. Oh. So I was like, but I could have used that to leverage a cap raise. That
sure, yeah.
So actually, I want to ask you. So I always kind of wondered this about you. For guys that are watching, they're like, these guys grew up with money, which we didn't, or these guys get investors. You never once, I don't think, did a global cap raise, right?
I've never raised money for anything yet.
But how did you do brick by brick so quickly? Because brick by brick is slow by design.
Very slow. Yeah. I mean, I think that's who I am too. I'm slow growth.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't want to. Yeah. I know nobody wants to hear that. And I have this conversation all the time. Nobody wants to hear that it's taken me a million years. That's right. Because it's funny because I just went through this recently because we're thinking about doing a cap raise for a couple of different things. Yeah. And I went through my list of people I could raise money from. Yeah. I'm like, I've never asked any of these people for $1 before.
Right? Yeah.
And for me, it's awkward. So I think that's part of it. I think I'm too prideful and I don't want to ask for help. And that's not the right way either. Right?
No, I know.
You understand it, but it just takes me longer.
Well, so I've never done a cap raise, and then Digest, we'll talk afterwards, but Digest is kind of taken off, and somebody was like, what are you looking to do? And I'm like, well, one, I want to build it. I think we were up forget about 10x on traffic, 1,000x, but probably about 8x on just our community that we built from a small little magazine in Hoboken to like a kind of a regional based out of Jersey. Okay. So we're doing that. And like the other part is, and you'll appreciate this, is I didn't focus on the monetization. I just focused on growth because we have the agency to kind of pay the bills. Yeah. So like now we're in monetization mode and we're kind of still like not sure how to monetize. We're doing well, but I'm like very cautious on how to monetize.
Yeah, you feel like you don't have a clear direction.
Correct. Like, do I want to do just ad sales? Do I want to do membership? Do I want to do all these different things? Right now, what's interesting is some people approach me are like, "Hey, do you want investors?" And I'm like, at that point where like, do I want to hire that social media person that should make 90 a year, but I can only afford 60? And I'm like, I can't afford that. But then now I'm allowing like $30K delta to maybe. So now I take outside money. And my thing is this, and it's weird. I'm not controlling in a sense where I hire the best people I can and let them do their job. I'm not controlling in that sense. I don't clock watch, that kind of stuff. But I'm controlling where if a guy gave me, let's say, a $400,000 check for 25%, right?
I feel responsible.
Yeah, I feel I won't sleep. I'll get nervous. I'll have diarrhea. So
it's harder when it's not your business.
I just don't. I'll probably take care of their money better than I would my own.
And then you almost make bad decisions based around it.
Correct.
So yeah, it's a tough balance, and it's funny because like anything else, if you ask the people who have done it, I had this conversation the other day with a guy that I'm thinking about investing with, and he's done P raises before. Yeah. He's 4 different businesses he sold. He's like, I don't want to raise money through private equity anymore. I don't want to be beholden to that anymore.
Well, P is a different ballgame.
Yeah. So I'm just like, there's two sides to everything. You know what I mean? Like there really is two sides to everything. I think at the point, I think if I'm going to assess you, because I know you for long enough at this point now, you're so knowledgeable about what you do. Yeah. I just feel like if you ever had the right money behind you, like in this situation,
I know.
You could kind of take it to the moon, probably. You know what I mean?
That's why. Like, am I being stupid? Am I letting so? We'll chat a little more. Screw it. You guys hang out. You're getting the real conversation we would have over lunch or drinks. So what I try to do is I try to pay fair, right? So let's just take a discussion. A job is the low end entry is $3,000, and the best person's going to cost you $10,000. I'll pay $6,000, right? $6K a month, whatever for that person.
It's reasonable, yeah.
And I do it reasonable, and I run lean, and I say this to every person, like if they ask more money or want more money. And I'm saying this is not a cop-out, but I pay you a fair wage. I run lean because I'm not going to give you $10,000 and in 3 months call you up and say I can't afford you. I run very lean. Yep. So you have a lot more job security. So I haven't laid off anybody in 12 years due to lack of work or finances. Now, performance or whatever that was. Sure. And had some bumps for new theory, but it was more performance issues.
You couldn't afford them at that point.
Correct. So
it's great.
So, but for the most part, I never looked at anybody in the eye and said, "Hey, you're fired because I brought you on for too much," or "I can't afford you because of what other than what you did."
Yeah.
If you fucked up, you're gone.
Yeah.
But macro stuff, right? So that's the way I kind of operate, right? But then I'm like, am I missing out where if I had a cap raise and I could pay them the 10, I'll get the A player. Or maybe they'll elevate to it. Because they also offer the person for 6. I'm a sales guy, so I offer a lot of incentives. And I'm very binary. You hit every number, not even a sales number. It could be a traffic number, whatever that is. Yeah. I overpay you. But if you don't hit, and like not everybody salespeople like us or have the wherewithal. So sometimes I'm like, do I do a cap raise and maybe pay them on the top, get the best people, and then I'll grow quicker and be able to sell quicker because that's where you want to go. Yeah. But then you're beholden. So let me ask you this. If I took 25% from somebody, right? $400,000 for 25%, even though they're not majority share, and I would probably have it in writing, like this is passive money, you have no say, they're going to break your balls. I'm sorry. You know what I mean?
I think with that, I think as long as so when I've been investors in other places and how I see companies run, I think as long as you set a good expectation, like, hey, we're going to have a bi-monthly board meeting. Yeah. You and I'm going to go through every single number with you.
So
we're going to
make alignment.
Yeah, we're going to make decisions on the next quarter. And we're going to, so this is going to be the thing, but I don't want to stray from this. Yeah. Like this is what it's going to be. Correct. So I think the right person with the right expectations as far as that goes, like, hey, this is my role, this is your role, and this whole entire thing, I'm going to lay it out clear. Yeah. And clearly we're going to have a meeting every third, month, whatever it's going to be, and we're going to go over the numbers, we're going over projections for the next week, and we'll go over any business decisions that's going to help, that's going to impact the company, and above 10% financially, whatever it is. I think if you do that, then you can definitely take the money. You know what I mean? And I think it's just the right person in the situation will do it, because for my purposes, And I think for anybody that puts money into things, I think I don't really want to be involved, but I feel
Yeah.
like if I'm not involved, the business doesn't run.
Correct.
But if I have what everybody always runs into an issue with me and when it's business is when I want to be updated on things that impact the bottom line.
Correct,
so it's like, if it's something, I'm not telling you, I trust you to make the decision.
Yeah, but you got to know when to come
But
to
at
me.
least tell me what's going on.
Correct.
That's it. Like, I'm not looking to, if you come into me for advice, I give you advice. But if you tell me what's happening, I'm cool.
Correct.
Or I'm in the loop. Because I just don't want to get blindsided later like, hey, this is a problem that I've been fighting over the last 6 months. Because what people say the most is, I didn't want to bother you with it.
Yeah, correct.
Well, bother me more because now we have to clean it up together.
That's right.
And I don't have any experience with what's going on. So I think as long as there's communication and there's good open communication, I think that you can make it work for you too. Because I think with you with open communication, like, look, this is what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
This is what I think the solution is.
Yeah.
But I'm open to input. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's what makes it work.
Beautiful. How can they find you, Ralph?
RalphDebugnaira.com is probably the best thing. My Instagram is I'm probably the most active, which is debug, DIBUG.
And I'll put links to
and Disrupt This Network on YouTube. That's probably the best places.
Love it, bud.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.